This is Mother Ulterior. Welcome to my realm. Today I want to talk about mental health. I feel like it's appropriate, given that over the last how many years now there's been a very steady campaign saying we need to talk about it, right? We need to normalize discussions about mental health. We need to normalize seeking treatment, taking medication, talking about our mental issues. Depression, anxiety, insecurity. But how do we begin that discussion if we don't know what everyone's understanding of mental health is? What is your interpretation of mental health? If I ask you to explain it to me in a sentence or two, I would say mental health is the condition of your inner voice, because it's internal. It's an internal thought process. It's your internal voice. Now, what condition is that voice in? Is that voice always telling you everything is fucked? Nobody loves you. You can't ever be different. This is how you were born. Therefore, everyone else needs to adapt to you. I'm not saying anything about these positions, but I'm saying that this seems to be common themes when people have talked about it. Now, what I'm about to go into, my angle on it, my take on it, if you will, it might make some women angry. For some, it might trigger them. I say everything I have to say is completely valid. It matters. It's a conversation that has to be had. If the things I say might resonate with even just a handful of women and actually truly help them, it means that it was what these women needed to hear. And it's funny that people who claim to want to hear female voices will reject ones that offer paths or angles that they might reject. So we go back to mental health being the condition of your inner voice. So someone with, let's say, a healthy inner condition is not immune to ups and downs, but it simply means they have more fortitude of mind and strength to know that they will get past the lows. We have varying degrees of mental issues these days, and I think they've always existed, since the dawn of time. As long as there have been people, there have been mental issues. But generational trauma, culture around us at large, these things shape the childhoods that become the foundation of our future mental health. And it's very rare to meet anyone these days who doesn't have some horrifying story of abuse of any kind, abandonment, neglect, trauma, Anyone that you run into and get to know on any level, I really believe will eventually reveal that they have suffered some kind of trauma very early on in life. Now, the way the brain works, for people who might not go into this angle of it, while we're growing up, I'm not a scientist, by the way, a scientist or a biologist, or, but I try to learn things, and now I will try to explain things, and I might do so poorly, but, bear with me. So the mind, of a child is still forming, its neural pathways. When a child goes through any experience of significance, the brain is building the connections in the mind that will lay the blueprint for how this child later on deals with similar situations in life. When certain neural responses get triggered in that human being, as an adult, if those foundations in the mind were laid over and over and over, for example, then yes, it becomes almost a debilitating physical impediment, this mental health issue, which some people have been abused to the point that they actually cannot live on any normal functioning level at all. If you understand me, we know exactly what I'm talking about. There's not much need to explain this further. But all of us have some level of this. Or most of us do. The next step in this conversation is how honest are we in accepting and addressing what may have happened to us very early on as being a contributor to where we are today. Sort of, because this happened to me when I was 2, is this why I made that choice when I was 21? That turned out to be a bad choice, but was it inevitable because of my neural programming? Or was there any point in time that I could have honestly appraised my condition, my mental inner voice, and weighed up factors such as choices I was making and past trauma and history? And I could have realized that perhaps this was not the best choice to make. Yes, maybe I could have. And I think a lot of women, this is that negative feedback loop that I talked about in my introduction video. If one of us expresses this inner voice, this insecurity or this doubt, this despair, depression, fear, anything that it is, we sort of need to hear an affirmative of that. Nobody will ever love me. And our natural response as a girlfriend, you're being silly, you're beautiful, look at you, any man would be lucky to have you, you're so wonderful. And we believe these things when we say it. But is this helping us? This loop of talking about our health problems, our mental health problems, is this what talking about it means? It stays stuck at talking about it. Or normalizing it even, when you say, no, there's nothing wrong with you, it's everyone else that needs to change. Now this is the angle nobody wants to hear. That maybe that's not the best thing to say or think. So mental health, the inner condition of your inner voice. Some call it a conscience. Doesn't matter what you call it or what you believe about it. We all have this one. There are certain choices that I know I've made in life and that you've probably made, and right before you made them, you had doubts. There was that voice saying, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe it's not the best for you or that person or this situation. That's the inner voice I'm talking about. Now, if the inner voice has become relentlessly negative to the point that it's dragging you down, and all you're getting is an affirmation feedback loop, how does that help someone? Whether that person might need counseling or medication. And as I said, those with intense trauma tend to need medication because their brain has literally been set. It's very set to react in this fashion. But let's just talk about the masses of people with some level of trauma in their life who sort of fail to factor it in, as perhaps they have grown up into an adult who has an issue with something, whether it's intimacy, whether it's change, whether it's sex. We all have some level of this. Now this female feedback loop, as I said, it affirms there's nothing wrong with you. I'm sorry to have to do this, but maybe it is you. Maybe it is me. How did that make you feel? Did you feel angry? Did you think I hate you because I said that? Does that mean I hate you? Really understand this. How did saying that make you feel? And how it made you feel will reflect the condition of your inner voice. And we all hate to hear that it might be us. And it's especially hard hearing it coming from people that we also have perhaps thought there's things that they could have done better, right? I mean, don't lie. Everyone seems to talk about don't judge and don't shame, but everyone does. If you say you don't, you lie. Whether you think it's judging a Nazi or judging someone making very, very poor choices that is going to hurt a lot of people. People judge. So if it's hard to hear it from other people, can we hear it from ourselves? Can we begin to introduce into this mental health, this inner voice we have? Can we introduce a voice that challenges us? Is that something you can do? You know, a good thing to try is, if it's a nice day outside with your morning coffee, if you've got the time, sit outside with nothing, no iPhone, no laptop, no music, no friends, no chatter. How long can you sit with your thoughts? And when you begin to get thoughts of yourself and some choices or people in your life, does it immediately go to the negative? Does it immediately go to the put down? Does it make you feel lesser? How is your inner voice making you feel? Now, if it does give you negative emotions, are you able to attempt to not react immediately to these negative emotions and maybe follow them down that rabbit hole a little bit? All right? Maybe that was my fault. What can I do to remedy this situation? What can I do to avoid this? I find a lot of people might have trouble with that. You know, there's always social media or noise, you know, constant noise. If you sit alone with your thoughts for 30 minutes, where do they go? Do you challenge yourself internally? Or do you focus on the ways the world should be better, the world can be different, the world will be better, and you can finally feel happy? So I don't know if I've made too much sense. This was my train of thought as I was sitting outside with my cup of coffee, sitting alone with my thoughts, and attempting to really sit with them and address some things that might be painful, other things that might be sad, things that might be confronting. When you sit alone with your inner voice, do you like what it says to you? And if you don't, what changes might you be able to make to turn the tide of your inner voice? This is Mother Ulterior. Have a blessed day.